Hello, good morning. Well, it's kind of morning here. It's almost noon. I keep wanting to do these outside with some beautiful sunshine, and here in Germany, I'm in Frankfurt, Germany right now. It is just gray and it's cold, and it keeps saying it's going to get warmer, and it's not. So, I'm not here to bitch about the weather in Germany. Most people know that the weather in Germany is not great until it's summer. When it's summer here, it's pretty fabulous. But anyway, this one is about Shakti. I think in my last one, I mentioned I would talk about Shakti soon, and I wasn't planning on doing it this time. But there's a lot of concerns, not the right word, but like a lot of people don't even know what the word Shakti means. There's a misunderstanding that it means the goddess. They always say Shiva Shakti, and so they think that means that it's the goddess, on the other side of Shiva. Um, it does mean that, but that is a very small piece of what it means because Shakti really means power. Um, in Sanskrit, words have many meanings, and there are also several words for one meaning too. So, but it depends on the context in which you use the word. Typically, in general, I would translate it as power because Shakti is the energy of the universe that every creation comes from. So without Shakti, there would be no incarnations at all, like human beings, plants, animals, nothing. Buildings, flora and fauna, none of it would be here without Shakti, because Shakti is the energy that everything is created from and that permeates everything. So the one thing I always like to think of is if you think of a hurricane, they say Shiva Shakti, and Shiva means auspicious also. But it think about the hurricane, and if you're in America, especially Southeast America, lots of hurricanes come there. So you hear about it all the time when you're in the U.S. Um, because there's a season every year. But the idea that the hurricane is this big swirling vortex of wind, water, and whatever it's picked up in it. And there's an eye of the hurricane is a still silent point that when it comes, you think it's finished. But if you go and peek outside your door, you actually see that there's more coming. Because you can see it in the distance, because the eye of the hurricane can be, a very large space, but that is very empty, but everything is swirling around it. So the idea is in the Hindu side of things is that the Shiva is the still point and the Shakti is the energy swirling around it. So without the still point, there would be no focus of the Shakti. And the Shakti can be a very destructive force because it is power, and it encapsulates everything on the planet. So when you have the still point, which is the focal point of the Shakti, which is the Shiva, then that comes into the energy comes into use. So say you have all this energy, like you're coming to, I teach asana, I teach an asana practice called Ashtanga Yoga. You're coming to do this in the morning, you're breathing deeply, so you're moving prana, you're accumulating Shakti in your body, in your energetic field, or your aura, in your energy body, subtle body. When you go to work, you have all that energy to put into flow as you focus on what you're doing, that task you're doing for that moment. And then when you shift, it goes there. Now it depletes itself, right? So you have to constantly keep rebuilding it until you get to a certain level. Then you're always taking in Shakti and you're always letting it loose. Once you've trained your body to absorb it, to accumulate it, but it must always be in flow. Everything must always be in flow. When there is no flow, then there is disease, cancer, All of these things happen when there is a stagnation in the physical body, in the energetic, which comes from, it's believed, which comes from the energetic body. So when the energy stops to flow, the body, there's a blockage creates in the physical body. And when that stays there long enough and your focus can come on it, then it brings it into a worse state, and then some disease can happen. This is kind of the energetic idea of how disease comes into the body. So you always want to have influx of Shakti coming in, but you also want to be able to let it go. So I'll tell you a little story. When I left India, I'm often in India. And last summer, because of visa reasons, I had to leave, but I also got an offer to go to New Jersey and teach. So I was there. And while you're in India, the energy of thousands and thousands of years of sadhana and of upasana from people who have been doing it sincerely and with devoted heart is in the soil, it's in the air, it's in the water. So your sadhana effects from your sadhana comes more easily. Even when you go there and you're just doing an asana practice, which is what's happening, in Mysore, where I typically live. People are going there to learn Ashtanga yoga. Its effects happen more quickly, more easily. So people often talk about Mysore magic because this magical effect happens. And when you go home, it's a lot harder to maintain because think about the US, it was a native population of people who were basically destroyed. And so that kills the Shakti of that race of beings that lived there that had also been nature worshippers and very shamanic, very energetic people who were in connection with God through the plants, through the air, through the fire. Same as Hindus. Was destroyed, and this whole population was built on top of it. So you're starting out, just a few hundred years back with nothing, and even with a negative effect because of all the rotten things that were done to those people. So when you're in the US specifically, Canada probably too a little bit. I don't know all of the stories of all of the whole continent of America. But mostly Europeans were plundering the North American, South American continents. So there's a lot of death and then a lot of forced religion switching. And so that is this energy we're trying to build is on top of that negative effect. So when you're in India and that positive effect is there because those people have never stopped worshiping, they have never stopped, even with the influx of the Christian Muslim cultures that came in and destroyed parts of their culture, they never stopped. Indians kind of don't, Hindus, I should say, don't really stop their worship because it is part of them. It's in their heart. Not everyone, but in general. So it is harder to maintain it when you're there. So I'm in New Jersey and I'm doing my sadhana, which is my asana practice, which is my puja, which is my mantras that I have. And mantras I'll talk about in a whole nother time. I might get into it a little bit here, but not too much. But I was doing it double time, kind of doing double the amounts and stuff because the energy wasn't coming to me as easily. And I found when I would do 3 or 4 sets of my mantras a day, I would get more of that feeling that I got in India from doing one. And I have, at the time, I still only had one mantra I was doing a day. Now I have 2. I'm doing a different one in the morning, a different one in the evening, and they have different effects. But even here, I'm still closer to India, and the energy comes more quickly. So when I was doing that, and then I went to Germany, and then I went back to India, I was still doing my sadhana at that same level, and I kept getting headaches, and I kept, I was like feeling like, say, I'm a bottle of soda, where the cap is on, and if you shake it up, it creates this pressure, and the cap feels like it's going to explode off. My head was feeling like that, and I was having headaches almost every day. And so finally, I was, at Guruji's house I live with. One friend lives there. He comes a couple times a month for different pujas. And when I first moved there, he was living there full time. And he said, you're back in India, and very insightful because I had knew all this, but I hadn't thought about it. Um, but he's a very insightful person, but very subtle. You don't really notice that he's kind of a spiritual guy, but he's very spiritual. Said to me, you're back in India. You don't have to keep doing everything as intensely as you did when you're gone. And so probably you're having that effect. Or this effect is caused by you feel like you're shaking the soda inside the bottle and the cap's staying on. So he said, let the cap off and let the pressure go. It'll depressurize. And I slowed it down, and it was perfect. It happened great, and it gave me more energy for other things, for living and for doing stuff. And I did a lot while I was there these last 6 months, which I had maybe my favorite time there in all of these 10 years of going. But it was very enlightening to think of that. So we're trying to build the Shakti, but you also have to allow the Shakti to flow through and to go out into the world. So like right now I'm teaching, so I'm giving in the class. Even if I'm just watching, my focus is there, and it's the Shakti, the energy, the prana is coming out and going into the people and holding the space that they're practicing in. So I'm replenishing it in a way that is fulfilling rather than overproduction of Shakti. So there's a balance. I'm not saying you have to build Shakti and you just have to, kill yourself building Shakti. That's not it. You have to let the flow happen. The flow has to always happen. So there's also blockages that can come from your physical body, from this tightness, from your mind, from your doing too much, all these things. So there's different types of Shakti. There's Kriya Shakti, which is the Shakti of action. So from doing things, you're gaining energy, but also you're putting energy out. It creates a balance. Icha Shakti. Icha is the willpower. So like doing my mantra sadhana, doing my upasana to whatever Devi I'm worshiping, it's my willpower, kind of in your solar plexus, bringing the energy in, and I have to let it distribute evenly. I can't focus only on one thing. And then Jnana Shakti. Jnana is mental thinking, processing, intellect. So from overthinking, you can give yourself headaches too, because you're pulling all the Shakti into here and it's not going anywhere else. If you can get those three in balance, then everything is easy. So your action is formed. So you're doing your willpower in your morning, drawing the energy in, and your action is using the Shakti you've built up and also absorbing some back as a flow of in and out of the circular motion. And you're able to think clearly also, and you've got this this strong intellect that's able to also release energy, also draw it in, just from telling someone a story about this stuff, from helping someone with this stuff. Like me making this video is me using my Jnana Shakti, because it's me formulating everything I've studied in my body into a thought and then letting it come out my mouth. But it's all really about freedom. How do we get enough energy inside us and let it flow freely so that we aren't pulling the energy into one spot and getting tightness in our muscles, getting tension in our mind, which then creates tension like in your neck, in your shoulders, all these things that you need a massage. And then the massage gives you momentary relief, and then it immediately comes back because you are still doing the same thing over and over again. You are not letting the flow happen, which is where the idea of freedom comes in. And I think I'll have to do another thing about freedom, because really all of these teachings are about freedom. And freedom doesn't mean, like right now it's cold outside, so I'm kind of stuck inside. Or if you're in prison, or if you're, you have created a bond with someone that is feeling like not a bond anymore, but a jail. So you're creating that. The idea of freedom is really an energetic mental thing. Your energy needs to be able to flow freely. Your mind needs to be able to allow it to flow freely, not create the jails that we create for ourselves mentally. The mind is all about it. So I think I'm going to do another thing on that. So that's all I got for you right now. We're at 15 minutes already. I'm trying to keep these somewhat short, but I talk a lot. So I got to really figure out how to do it in less time, maybe. Or maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it's okay. Maybe I should just talk for an hour. I don't know. I can talk for an hour, but do I need to? Nah, it's okay. Anyway, namaste. Have a good day.